Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we live in a world where the power grid flickering causes instant panic, but we rarely consider the scenario that is far more central, far more terrifying.
And yet completely invisible until it's gone.
Exactly. Today, we are staring into a truly catastrophic thought experiment. What happens in the single second the entire global internet, all of it, simply shuts down?
It's the ultimate test of modern civilization. And for you, the learner, our mission today is to move past the simple, abstract idea of an outage and, well, to really analyze the mechanics of failure based on this stack of source material we've got.
Right.
We're going beyond the assumption that you can't check Instagram. We are analyzing how quickly the invisible system, the thing holding our complex, interconnected society together, just unravels.
And the sources set the stage with beautiful clarity. The instantaneous total shutdown. No websites, no apps, no satellite data exchange, nothing. The initial response, our sources note, is a deceptive silence. People assume it's localized. A bad Wi-Fi signal, a router needing a reboot.
Well, of course. We are so trained to anticipate minor regional disruptions, aren't we?
Yeah.
The idea of a global total freeze is initially just dismissed as impossible.
But the core insight from the material is that the silence is corrosive. As those first few minutes pass and the usual digital chatter doesn't resume, that assumption of a minor glitch dissolves into genuine apprehension.
Right. So our purpose here is to unpack this speed of collapse. How quickly does our digital dependency paralyze the physical systems we use every single day?
So we'll move chronologically. We start with the immediate psychological and logistical collapse of communication, then shift to the instantaneous paralysis of the multi-trillion-dollar global economy.
And then finally, we have to confront the total failure of essential physical infrastructure, transport, safety, and health.
And ultimately, the source material forces us to answer the key question. Why did the internet transition from being just a tool for information sharing into the fundamental, invisible operating system of modern society?
And what does its abrupt removal mean for the world's ability to survive, let alone function?
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the immediate shock. Section 1, the silence and the communication breakdown. So, the moment the internet goes down globally, that instant freeze, the first and I think the most visceral impact is on communication.
Oh, absolutely.
Our sources detail an instantaneous total communication blackout. Messaging apps, email, social media, all go silent. But let's go deeper than just personal chatting. How far does this instant freeze really reach into coordinated society?
It reaches everywhere. I mean, modern communication isn't just about sharing vacation photos. Right. It's the fundamental coordination layer of society. What's fascinating here is that we're not talking about physical infrastructure failure. The cell towers are standing, the fiber optic cables are intact.
But the connections are dead.
Exactly. The critical layer of IP routing and protocol exchange is gone. Without the ability for packets of data to find their route instantly, the infrastructure is just inert hardware. It's like having roads but no traffic rules and no drivers.
And the immediate psychological impact described in the sources is palpable. Detail that loss of personal contact for us, that immediate spike of anxiety when you can't confirm safety.
Well, we've trained ourselves, haven't we? We expect immediate bi-directional feedback. If there is a crisis, your very first instinct is to text or call or email to verify the safety of your loved ones.
The moment you hear a siren, you check your phone.
And that ability to coordinate, to reassure, is instantly erased. The anxiety is amplified because you can't even get information about why the silence is happening. Are they safe? Is this just my street? Is this catastrophic?
That sudden isolation from one's core emotional support network creates a profound collective mental health crisis.
Yes, simply because the global nervous system is shocked into silence.
And that profound disconnection immediately translates into massive business and coordination paralysis. The modern enterprise runs on digital coordination. Can you give us a sense of the scale of operational failure here?
Oh, it's total. Think about a major multinational operating 24/7. Their supply chain depends on instantaneous email confirmations for receiving raw materials.
Right.
Their accounting uses centralized cloud-hosted ledgers. Their distributed teams rely entirely on platforms like Slack or, centralized document servers.
So when those tools vanish,
the entire organization effectively ceases structured activity. The sources emphasize that operations built on precision, speed, and real-time data input, which is almost all large-scale modern business, they don't slow down. They just stall immediately.
I found it really astonishing that the sources spent so much time on the failure of industrial communication. We talk about apps, but what about the infrastructure that keeps the lights on and the water running?
Well, that takes us into the critical area of SCADA systems, supervisory, controlled, and data acquisition. These systems regulate everything from water purification plants and gas pipelines to automated factory floors. They rely heavily on the internet or private networks that use the same IP protocols to monitor sensor data, transmit commands, and ensure safety thresholds.
So without the internet, remote monitoring fails.
It fails, and these complex industrial systems often revert to a safe, manual shutdown state. Or worse, they operate blindly until a human can intervene.
And that human intervention is now slowed by the communication collapse we just talked about.
Precisely. So this isn't just lost efficiency. It's a profound threat to our basic utility services.
And that failure in industrial communication ties directly into the slowing of information. The pace of human society instantly decelerates. We are so accustomed to instant updates. Our source material notes that news outlets lose their fastest method of recording.
Right. They might have legacy copper phone lines or maybe radio transmission, but the speed, the certainty, and the scope of their reporting capacity just drops precipitously.
It's a huge drop.
The modern journalist relies on accessing digital databases, verifying information instantly, and utilizing global wire services. All of that is just gone.
And critically, official government warnings or attempts at crowd control are now dependent on this vastly slowed, inefficient mechanism.
It creates a vacuum.
Yes, a vacuum where official communication just can't keep pace with the panic.
And that vacuum is where chaos begins. When the truth can't travel fast, speculation and fear travel faster. This also impacts traditional media in ways we don't immediately recognize, which brings us to the really surprising detail in the sources about media and cloud dependency.
This was a brilliant point. I think most of us assume broadcast television or, terrestrial radio is safe. But the sources state that even traditional television networks begin to experience failure.
They do.
So why are legacy systems like broadcast TV or even some AM radio stations so reliant on the cloud?
This illustrates the hidden dependency model perfectly. While the final signal transmission might be analog, the entire workflow behind it relies on digital coordination.
So everything from the schedule to the ads?
Transmission schedules, advertising insertion feeds, rights management, and often the initial satellite uplink management. All of that utilizes IP protocols.
Ugh.
And they frequently rely on public cloud services for redundancy, for storage, or for sophisticated scheduling.
Wow.
Even the synchronization of regional broadcasts often requires internet-based time signaling. So when that cloud backbone goes, the system degrades rapidly, often forcing broadcasters off air or limiting them to rudimentary, local, manually operated systems.
So if we look at the whole picture for you, the learner, the main point is this feeling of disconnection from the world. It's disorientation, not just inconvenience.
Precisely. We're talking about true global isolation. The world shrinks instantly to the physical space you occupy because the global consciousness, that shared instant understanding of what is happening a continent away, has just evaporated.
You are isolated not just from your family, but from the global context.
Which is terrifying when you have no idea whether the problem is happening only in your neighborhood or everywhere.
And that isolated panic quickly moves from psychological stress to absolute economic collapse. The silence transitions into an instantaneous systemic paralysis of global wealth. Here's where the deep dive gets intensely technical and, frankly, terrifying. Our sources state that within just a few hours of the outage, financial systems don't slow down, they instantly seize up.
Yeah, that's the key. Not slow, but seize.
If communication is the nervous system, finance is the blood supply, and that supply freezes solid.
We begin with the financial freeze. Banks cannot process any transactions. To understand this, we need to talk about data integrity and trust.
Right. It's all about trust.
Modern finance relies on billions of instantaneous checks and confirmations. When a wire transfer occurs, it's not just moving money. It's sending a verified message through a system like SWIFT or a national settlement system like FedWire.
And those systems rely entirely on digital, verified communication. So the instant failure of digital money means credit cards stop working and ATMs fail.
Absolutely. Think about the card reader at the grocery store. It has to communicate with the payment processor, which then communicates with the issuing bank, which verifies funds, then relays the authorization back all in less than 2 seconds.
Without the internet, that authorization layer is just gone.
Gone. The card, even if it's physically in your hand, becomes worthless plastic. because the terminal cannot establish trust or verification.
And the failure of ATMs is often misunderstood, I think. It's not just that they can't connect, is it?
No, it's more fundamental than that. They rely on constant digital communication for security and for balancing the central ledger. If an APM dispenses cash without digitally logging it, the bank immediately faces massive fraud and security risks.
So they're programmed to just shut down.
The systems are designed to revert to a non-operational status the second that connectivity fails. It's a fail-safe.
And at the same time, the stock markets freeze instantly. This seems obvious, but the scale is hard to comprehend.
It is. These markets are entirely predicated on high-speed data exchange, often measured in microseconds for high-frequency trading, or HFT.
Right.
When data exchange stops, prices cannot be updated, bids cannot be matched, and continuous trading is just impossible. The markets become inert, leading to instant systemic risk as institutions can no longer hedge, trade, or liquidate assets.
And this highlights the sheer velocity and volume involved in the scale of economic stoppage. The source material notes the modern economy moves billions of dollars every single second. When that movement is paralyzed, how does one even begin to quantify the loss?
Well, you can't quantify the loss initially, only the cessation of activity. We're talking about interbank lending stopping, clearing houses being unable to reconcile accounts, and massive derivatives markets losing all ability to calculate risk or margin calls.
It's like the rule book for money just disappears.
That's a great way to put it. The economic structure is a constantly verified digital agreement. When the verification mechanism, the integrity of the network stops, the agreement is nullified. The system doesn't just stop generating wealth. It begins to cannibalize stored wealth because the mechanisms of accessing and trusting that wealth were gone.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, as you often say, the modern economy is essentially a system of constantly verified digital communication.
Indeed. Money is data. If you can't trust the path of the data, you can't trust the value of the money. And it goes beyond that. I mean, consider the insurance industry.
Oh, wow.
Every policy, every claim, every actuarial calculation relies on accessing and processing massive amounts of data instantly. That entire industry goes dark. Every form of financial oversight, risk management, and capital formation predicated on information flow just ceases.
And the physical consequences are immediate. Global trade halts. This is where the abstract failure of money meets the concrete world of goods. Logistics, shipping, and supply chains rely entirely on digital communication.
This is critical. We have to talk about just-in-time manufacturing, JIT.
Okay.
Factories globally rely on receiving components exactly when they need them, not a day earlier, not an hour later. This choreography is managed via network logistics, tracking components with RFID data, scheduling deliveries, and securing customs pre-clearance digitally.
So without the internet, that entire information chain breaks.
Instantly. Factories waiting for critical parts tracked via network systems just shut down. The global manufacturing engine seizes up.
So that container ship we might have imagined in the mid-Pacific, it's not just about knowing where to go next.
No, not at all. It's about the port being able to receive the manifest, having the automated crane system scheduled, and customs pre-approving the cargo.
And if that information can't be digitally exchanged...
The port becomes a massive, unmanageable parking lot.
Exactly.
Ports become massive bottlenecks, and perishable goods on those ships spoil. Critical goods, like specialized pharmaceuticals or components for power generation, stop moving.
So global trade, as we know it, which demands speed, transparency, and massive scale, is completely impossible to maintain.
Impossible.
Now, let's pivot to the interesting anomaly our sources point out, the cash conundrum. They note that people with physical currency have an advantage, at least initially.
They do. In that first moment, cash is king. Physical currency provides a localized, trust-based transactional mechanism.
I can still buy a bottle of water.
In the immediate aftermath, you can use physical paper money to buy basic necessities from a corner store, provided the vendor is willing to take it. It bypasses the need for digital verification.
However, the sources immediately offer a very strong counterpoint to that cash advantage. Even cash transactions become complicated.
They become almost impossible for any real business.
Right, because businesses cannot verify payments or, crucially, track inventory without their digital systems.
This is the death knell for commercial operations beyond, the simplest roadside stand. Modern businesses need to manage sales tax, VAT, payroll, and, most importantly, inventory.
So even if you have cash, the store runs out of stock and can't reorder.
Exactly. If a large retailer is operating purely on cash, they have no digital record of what they sold. They cannot calculate taxes owed, they cannot reconcile their physical inventory against their sales ledger, and they cannot critically signal to their suppliers what needs restocking.
So cash provides personal liquidity for maybe a few days, but it doesn't solve the systemic problem of supply chain management and commercial viability.
Not at all. The lack of digital tracking means businesses are operating blind, unable to restock, unable to pay staff accurately, and unable to comply with even rudimentary governance.
The short-term convenience of cash quickly gives way to the long-term logistical impossibility of maintaining complex commerce without verifiable instantaneous data exchange.
The economy is paralyzed not just by lack of funds, but by the cessation of reliable information.
And this paralysis in finance and trade has an immediate devastating domino effect on our physical, essential infrastructure. Which brings us to the most dangerous phase of the collapse. So we've moved from silent communication to seized finance. Now the disruption extends into the physical world. Movement, safety, healthcare. Our sources use some really striking detail to illustrate the absolute reliance of physical systems on the internet.
And this is where it gets really scary, I think. The transportation collapse is immediate and multi-layered. Let's start with the highest stakes coordination required. Aviation.
Right. Airports face the critical failure of high-stakes digital coordination. Our sources detail the terrifying reliance on digital systems for air traffic control, ATC.
And it's not just communication between the ground and the cockpit, which can revert to radio. It's the instantaneous, highly synchronized data streams that monitor position, velocity, and crucial separation distances between hundreds of aircraft.
We're talking about radar data being processed and transmitted via IP networks, and the requirement for planes to constantly update their position using what are they called?
ADS-B transponders. They feed into these network systems. Without the internet backbone, the sophisticated software that ensures air safety is rendered unusable. Air traffic management becomes guesswork.
Forcing an immediate global grounding of commercial air travel.
Yes. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's a massive safety failure that instantly strands millions of people worldwide.
And on the ground, transport is just as bad. Roadways are deceptively reliant on the network. I mean, beyond our personal navigation systems shutting down, traffic control software collapses.
It does. In major cities, traffic management is done by advanced network systems like SCATs or similar intelligent transportation systems.
And these systems don't just run on fixed timers, right?
No. They use real-time sensor data from cameras and loops buried in the asphalt to dynamically adjust signal timings to optimize flow and prevent gridlock.
So when the internet fails,
the sensors cannot communicate with the central management system. The lights revert to basic, often inefficient, pre-programmed settings, leading to massive instant gridlock across metropolitan areas.
Just imagine millions of vehicles stuck instantly. And even simple travel difficulty is exacerbated by the fact that most drivers have, well, we've all outsourced our spatial memory to online maps.
Absolutely. Even if you manage to avoid the gridlock, finding your way across a city without real-time routing or even basic location lookup becomes an immense logistical headache.
And the sources also highlight rail transport. That was another surprising dependency for me.
It's a huge one. Modern high-speed rail systems rely on something called positive train control, or PTC systems. These are complex, networked systems that constantly verify a train's speed and location against dynamic track conditions and other traffic.
It's a critical safety layer.
It is. It prevents collisions and derailments. Without that centralized digital network, the safety margins disappear, forcing railways to shut down or operate at drastically reduced manual speeds, which effectively halts the flow of goods and people across continents.
So overlaying this massive transportation chaos is the problem facing emergency services. They're struggling. How does this immediate communication failure compromise, say, 911 response capabilities?
Well, while dedicated emergency radio bands might survive locally, the system for handling a call is entirely dependent on internet protocols.
So when you call 911,
the process involves instant caller location, often triangulated digitally, routing the call to the nearest dispatch center via IP-based trunking, accessing digital databases for premises history, and coordinating the nearest fire, police, or ambulance unit.
And when that digital coordination layer fails,
dispatchers are struggling to locate callers efficiently. They can't access critical medical or residential history, and the ability to coordinate large-scale response efforts, say coordinating police blockades with fire routes, is severely compromised.
The delay introduced by manual, fragmented communication in life or death situations must be immense.
It is. And that leads us to the most catastrophic failure of all, the hospital crisis. This is where the loss of the invisible system results in immediate and potentially lethal consequences.
Hospitals lose access to digital medical records.
Yes, and we have to be clear here, we're talking about electronic health records, EHRs. Every piece of patient history, allergies, prescriptions, lab results, imaging scans, all of it instantly vanishes from easy access.
Which causes immediate delays and dangerous mistakes, as the sources describe.
But the dependency goes far beyond EHRs. Modern healthcare is intrinsically networked. Failure means the collapse of network diagnostic machinery, MRI machines, CT scanners, advanced lab testing equipment.
They all rely on digital systems to process and transmit results to the medical staff.
And pharmacy automation systems, which manage drug inventory and ensure correct dosing, they freeze. Even advanced patient monitoring systems in ICUs rely on networked infrastructure to alert staff instantly.
So even if a hospital has its own internal network, a local backup,
Even then, the very connectivity that allows a physician to pull up an image taken 30 seconds ago in the radiology department and compare it with the patient's records is gone. The speed and precision of modern healthcare are utterly contingent on that network integrity.
this systemic failure creates immense pressure on governance. Governments face governmental disarray and public panic because they can't coordinate with other nations.
Diplomacy, which relies on secure, instant digital communication, just halts. Shared intelligence and coordination of international response efforts cease instantly.
And domestically, they cannot communicate effectively with their own citizens. Official government websites, emergency notification systems, social media channels.
The primary means of disseminating accurate information or ordering curfews, all gone.
So this raises a profoundly important question. What happens when official channels go dark?
The consequence is immediate panic and the rapid growth of rumors and misinformation. When people are isolated and afraid, they seek explanation.
Word of mouth becomes the main source of news.
Right. Word of mouth, fragmented radio broadcasts, and even internal corporate memos are seized upon. Rumors quickly take the place of official communication, spreading faster than the government can manage, leading to unpredictable and dangerous public reactions.
The societal reaction described in the sources is the logical outcome of this fear. In many regions, people rush to stores, buying food and supplies, fearing the worst.
Well, the sense of an unbreakable infrastructure turning fragile and unstable drives this survivalist behavior. The crisis is now truly societal, moving from a technical failure to a public order catastrophe.
The foundation of modern trust in the safety of one's finances, the security of one's travel, the certainty of immediate communication is systematically removed.
And that drives people to prioritize immediate physical resources.
We've seen the collapse over minutes and hours. Now we have to look at the long-term cost and the forced adaptation after the initial shock subsides. Okay, so we jump ahead to what our sources call after several days. The initial frantic chaos has lessened slightly, but the world is settling into the new reality. And it's a reality defined by massive, largely irreversible damage.
The sources detail a systemic shock that fundamentally rewrites global economics. Global markets collapse, international trade stops completely, and millions of businesses shut down.
The economic devastation outlined here is staggering. We're not just talking about lost sales, are we?
No, not at all. We're talking about the failure of liquidity mechanisms and the mass insolvency of companies whose entire operational existence relied solely on digital flow.
Think about the massive infrastructure we built around seamless e-commerce, digital advertising, cloud computing. The sources emphasize that millions of digital-first businesses simply vanished,
signaling widespread economic devastation that far exceeds any previous global recession.
And even physical businesses that survive are hampered by the inability to manage payments, track inventory, or coordinate labor.
And this means life slows down profoundly. The sources say life slows to a pace not seen in decades.
We are talking about transactions taking days, travel requiring weeks of planning, and information dissemination reverting to manual, cumbersome processes that impose immediate, severe friction on everything we do.
Globalization, as defined by instantaneous connection, is over. It's just gone.
So, if the digital world has vanished, what is the required method of survival? Our sources describe this enforced return to analog.
Right. Reliance on radio, physical documents, and face-to-face communication becomes the standard.
Radio becomes essential, but we have to understand its limits.
Exactly. It's a one-way broadcast. It's good for receiving general updates, weather, government decrees, but it's useless for interactive, personalized, or coordinated communication. The capacity of humanity to coordinate large-scale actions without that bidirectional digital feedback is massively diminished.
And the return to physical documents and ledgers for record keeping is just a massive logistical step backward, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge. Handwritten notes, paper files, physical archives, these are slow, they're prone to transcription error, they lack searchability, and they're instantly vulnerable to physical destruction, like fire or floods.
We lose the infinite redundancy and instantaneous searchability that define the last 30 years of civilization.
Furthermore, physical ledgers introduce massive security and auditability concerns. I mean, how do you audit a multinational corporation relying on thousands of geographically dispersed, manually kept paper records?
You can't.
You really can't. Fraud becomes rampant, and the ability to verify historical data for governance or legal proceedings is severely compromised. The cost of this manual record keeping, the time, the manpower, the lack of security is immense.
And face-to-face communication, while it's vital for rebuilding local trust, imposes the severe constraint of physical travel.
Which, as we established, is already extremely difficult thanks to the collapse of network transportation systems. The world becomes fragmented into local, slow-moving islands of coordination.
This feels like a crucial pivot point. If we analyze the political cost, local governance begins to degrade when national coordination fails.
It has to. The ability of a central government to project authority, collect taxes, or enforce laws is massively dependent on network communication. Without it, local regions must become self-sufficient, leading to political and logistical fragmentation.
So what does this all mean? The final conclusion from the source material hits hard. The internet was not just a tool, it was the invisible system holding modern society together. It was the fundamental operating system.
And that realization is the core takeaway for you, the learner. We viewed the internet through its user interface, email, apps, search engines. We fail to recognize its underlying role as the synchronization engine for the physical world.
Ensuring the stability of the electrical grid, optimizing logistics, verifying financial assets, and coordinating global health responses.
All of it. Its invisibility led to complacency regarding its fragility.
The event, therefore, is not a mere inconvenience. Our summary is clear. The event would be a historic event that reshapes economies, governments, and daily life.
Yes, humanity survives, but the world is fundamentally changed.
And it's reshaped because the mechanisms of rapid globalization are broken beyond easy repair.
Exactly. Governments must abandon decades of interconnected strategy and reinvent coordination without instant data transfer. Daily life is defined by scarcity, scarcity of information, scarcity of manufactured goods, and scarcity of rapid solutions.
The world becomes harder, slower, and profoundly less connected.
A truly comprehensive and sobering analysis of our deep dependency.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey. From the immediate deceptive silence of the internet failure through the paralysis of global finance and trade, detailing the mechanism of failure in systems like just-in-time manufacturing and high-frequency trading, to the full-blown collapse of essential infrastructure like rail control and hospital systems.
And we ended by confronting the massive societal upheaval required to adapt to a world operating at a pace not seen in decades.
The value of this analysis for you, the learner, is the recognition of that deep, hidden dependency.
We rely implicitly on an infrastructure that goes completely unnoticed until it's gone. This hypothetical shutdown forces us to acknowledge how thoroughly the digital layer has become the foundational operating system of the physical world.
We saw how quickly the pillars of modernity, instant contact, verifiable money, coordinated travel, and swift emergency response are swept away when that digital foundation vanishes.
Often because the analog backups were either decommissioned or, ironically, integrated into the very system that failed.
And that leads us to a final provocative thought for you to mull over or explore on your own, building on our source material's conclusion.
If the internet is the invisible system that holds us together, and its failure forces a regression to physical documents, radio, and face-to-face contact, what does that reveal about the necessary non-digital foundations required for survival?
That's a great question.
What foundational, non-networked systems or skills should we be prioritizing and maintaining right now, knowing the intrinsic, deep fragility of the interconnected world we've built?
Something to ponder next time your phone updates or your payment processes in a millisecond. Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.